the left of us, on that hill, the battalion on top of that hill got to the bottom of the slope, and they came under such heavy fire out of that village that they decided to pull out and retreat up to the summits. They had to get down here, capture these villages, or get back up there as quickly as possible. There's nowhere to hang around. So the first attempt to capture these forward slopes and villages was unsuccessful. And during the night of the 11th of December 1944, up in their foxholes up on the ridges, in the darkness they could hear the clip-clop of horses' hooves in these villages at the bottom, towing artillery. And they could hear the clanking of tanks coming along the roads out of Colmar, which is about 3 miles to the right of us, down on the valley floor. And these tanks were coming out of Colmar over here. So they figured that something big was up. And the following morning, on the 12th of December 1944, all hell broke loose. Heinrich Himmler launched what he called Operation Hawk to surround the US 36th Division on these hills, get behind their front, surround the whole division, destroy them, close off the pass they came through and get them out of the valley. And it almost succeeded. Now he brought SS troops across. And they call it the Maison Rouge. So Audie and his men, this is the end of the road that we were on the left here. This is the end of the road that goes down to the memorial into Holzfeld. So I said they joined up with armour coming across and attacked down that road towards Holzfeld. You'll see the foundations of the original bridge here on the right, the concrete foundations. And as I was saying, Audie said it went very smoothly. And as they crossed the canal here, Adolf Hitler threw one of his tantrums, which was pretty unusual for Hitler. And he fired Heinrich Himmler, who he had put in charge as a general of all the forces the Germans had in the pocket here, about 120,000 of them. And Hitler didn't know what was going on. He thought it was just general pressure along the front to cause a collapse somewhere. He wasn't aware of this east-south sidestepping strategy the Third had. So he fired Heinrich Himmler, and he replaced him with an SS general called Paul Hauser as they were crossing the canal. With their feet, and trying to get some feeling back into them, rubbing their feet. And he noticed that Elridge was really suffering, so he wanted to cheer him up. And he said to him, "Well, Elridge, what does the tourist guidebook say about this Alsace, France here that we're in?" And he said, Elridge cracked up a smile and he said, "Well, Alsace, France is very cold in the winter, but the reception we're getting is very warm." And he said there's a distinct lack of Allied armour on the landscape here, and food is scarce. And he said the current tourists are vehemently anti-American. And he said, in fact, take a postcard, Audie, To all of you back in San Diego, I'm having a wonderful time here in Alsace, France. Wish you were all here, and I was back in San Diego. The Rhine's behind us, and this canal was built in the 18th century to bring supplies from the Rhine behind us, parallel with us here on the left, into Colmar city. It's about 7 miles to Colmar, ahead of us. And they built it in the 18th century. And it's about 50 feet across, this canal. It runs west, parallel with us here. And it's got 12-foot high walls on either side, so it was quite a barrier for the troops to get across. And Audie Murphy said the crossing actually went very smoothly. They had a 17,000 round, 3-hour artillery preparation, firing from this side of the canal at targets. You'll see villages through the trees on the left there. And so they were firing from this side at targets on the other side, and they crossed under the cover of the artillery barrage. And Audie said that the crossing went very smoothly. They crossed between 9 p.m. and midnight. See the bank on the left there? On the 29th and 30th of January 45. And he said the first troops went across in little rubber boats. Then they put little pontoon bridges across. They lay little boats across and heavy tanks and infantry coming towards them. And they had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And Audie said he broke into a cold sweat, wondering what was going to happen. And he said he was just praying that they wouldn't see through the mud on their uniforms. And the Germans were getting closer and closer. He was worried the prisoners might say something, but he said they were so traumatized they didn't notice anything. So, as they got closer, Audie grabbed one of these German prisoners' helmets and stuck it on his head. And his other men started doing the same. They all put these German prisoners' helmets on. And the Germans came within about 20 yards of them. And Audie said to his men, just smile and wave at them, boys. So they smiled and waved at the Germans, who smiled and waved back and drove straight past. Now you're going to see a little bridge on the left here, and we're going to turn right. You'll see a bridge on the left with the water tower. And Audie and his men were ordered to capture this bridge. Bridges were everything in this campaign, with all the canals, rivers, streams that course across the river. Bridges and capturing them was everything. So he had to was ordered to capture, started fanning out from the beaches, and the 3rd Division opened the way for the French to drive on the port of Marseille that Eisenhower wanted. And they had a terrible 2-week battle for Marseille in August 44, and while they were fighting for it, the Americans and the rest of the French came up the Rhone Valley, and they made magnificent progress, lightning dash up the Rhone Valley, chasing a much larger force of Germans. Now this little village is called Beblenheim. We're just coming up to the wine trail here, and you've got all these little villages along the wine trail, all about 2 to 4 miles apart. Miles to the left of us, ahead of us here, was repaired and rehabilitated, and supplies started coming up the Rhone Valley, round behind the mountains to the right of us here, up to the troops in the forest, and the Allies launched another big push through the mountains starting on November the 18th, 44, and 5 days later, the US 36th Division from Texas broke out of the mountains about 10 miles behind us into the wine trail. And they all have a wine festival during the summer period, well, from May till October. Each of the villages will have a wine festival at some stage, and they're a lot of fun. Usually about 15,000 people come into the village for the festival. It goes for 4 days, Friday to Monday, and the people are supposed to go back to work on Tuesday. Still pretty quiet. But they're a lot of fun. They have a lot of singing and dancing. Actually, a lot of blues bands and pop groups come from America and play the wine festival season here.